pay attention. And I had what I called poor visual acuity. I didn't notice what was going on around me, especially while driving, missing a lot of stop signs and red lights, which is very dangerous and caused me to drive less over time. That kind of got me to go to seek the medical help route. I had some, we'll say, neurological problems as a child that I thought may had returned. That turned out bunk. And I did very begrudgingly see a psychologist. I've had one singular good experience with a psychologist in my life. That was when I was dealing with epic grain problem. The rest of them have been very, very negative. My mother was, I don't know, I think it's called Munchausen. Like, she had to make sure that her children had diseases and they were special and this sort of thing. So she would take me to child psychologists. And you had some that would say, okay, well, this kid's 7 years old, his parents had a divorce, this is normal for him to be sad. And then you had some like, well, he has this disorder, that disorder, this disorder, blah, blah, let's do medicine. So I was very, very greatly against going to a psychologist, but I went and I talked to this fellow for a few minutes, and he told me very clearly, plainly, this is depression and stress, this is, you need to talk to me, you need to come back, and I really dealing with subconscious, so I decided not to come back. I felt that I was strong enough to overcome this on my own without any help, and when I started digging into the symptoms of depression, I noticed that I fit almost a textbook kind of case. I had a lack of sleep, or a very irregular sleep schedule. Some days, like today, I have only slept 3 hours, and I won't be going to sleep before 24 hours. Other days, I'll sleep 12, 13, 14, 15, and there's not really a pattern for it. Some days lots of sleep, some days not so much. Typically, for me, it's not so much. Very easily fatigued. I would do just a little bit of work and get tired. I was badly out of shape, but it exhausted me. Even though just a little bit of brain work, completely exhausting. This one we've talked about in gamer fitness. I would only eat once a day. That started back in college, and what I would do is I was just very, very busy. A lot of homework, gotta make videos, gotta do this, got a job going on, got a wife to take care of, and there would only be time to eat once a day. I swallowed a dog hair there. And it kind of snowballed into I wasn't hungry but once a day, and then I don't feel like eating because I feel worthless, like I don't deserve the food. That's not a common thought, but it's I just sit there and think, what have I done today to deserve food? Nothing. I guess I'll eat when I'm really, really hungry and I have to. And then it got worse and worse into 2 days, and then I would eat like twice a day because I had to, because I was with my family or something, and feel just like a huge pig. There was feelings of worthlessness. This is very common for me as an individual. I don't feel like I am worth anything. I know that you can't use the definition of the thing in the word, but I feel pretty childish, like people pity me, people look down on me, like I'm just kind of sad, like I'm in the bottom 1%, and that my life is pretty pointless or hopeless. This is what got me pretty bad. I would call it extreme nihilism or nihilism. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I always read it, not speak it. It feels like there's no point in being alive sometimes. Like I am little more than just a very complicated machine or a very unusual structure of atoms that through some bit of happenstance became partially self-aware, and that my decisions are not necessarily my own, but they're the decisions made by electrons, pluses and minuses, spinning around in a very complicated order. Or that even if let's say I die tomorrow, so what? Who cares? Am I going to care? No, I'm going to be dead. If I die next, what impact has my life had on this world? What good have I really done anybody in the long term for anything? And you know, the world won't miss me. And then there's the heaven or hell aspect, like you go to heaven or you go to hell. I can see, you go to hell, it's suffer forever, and okay, well that's bad. If you go to heaven, you're happy forever. Well, that sounds okay, but if you're happy forever or suffering forever and there's nothing else, and you remove the yin from the yang, then why does that matter at all? And it just feels so incredibly pointless. Walking around stores is brutal, because when you go to a store, that's what you're kind of, if you think about it from an economic theory, you work hard, you get your money, and then you go to a store. I'm just going to use Walmart or Target as an example, and you walk around and you take your work points, I've contributed such a small percent to our economy, and these dollars are my little noodles or my little happy points, and I go and spend them on things that are supposed to make me happy. And when I look at all the products and stuff, because of my training in marketing and because of the depression, all I see is what they're supposed to be. I see the toothpaste, and I see the guy smiling, and I realize that it's not advertising cleaner teeth. The guy doesn't want cleaner teeth. The guy wants cleaner teeth so that he can show off, so that he can perceive to be better than his peers, so that he can be the alpha male, the preferred mate, to get more women, to procreate, to make more children. For what end? To what point does this go? You can take any product and it runs in a similar kind of direction. You usually run up into some of the more base desires, and these feelings of pointlessness built up into me. I had random anger outbursts. I did not, how would I say it? I did not yell at my wife, but I was very snappy with her, which is very abnormal for me. I would like to say I'm one of the more patient people. A lot of feelings of almost uncontrollable anger. I do have a very, very, very bad temper. I've had it for a long time. Most people that know me would say that I'm relatively calm or level-headed, but I've always had an extremely bad temper, but the good Lord blessed me with an extremely good control of the temper, so it seems very mellow. And the most concerning thing of all, what really made me realize what was happening, was thoughts of suicide. When you start feeling that your life is pointless and worthless, the next step is to just go ahead and end it, to just put it to be. I thought about crashing my car. I don't really like the pills route. I thought about loading up my guns and blowing my brains out. Not going to hang myself again, that would hurt too bad, but I thought about it for a while, a good long while, but it just didn't feel right. It felt like the pansy's way out. That's what quitters do. That's what weak people do, is they commit suicide. And I've always had a penchant for challenge, and I just decided to keep on living and seeing what could happen. And I also felt really bad to think that my wife would have to come in and see that, because I love her to death and I care about her, and we don't always get along great, but that's coming up next. But I wasn't going to absolutely punish her and my family with that, because in my family, on both sides, for now at least until my brother grows up, I am kind of like the last of the last of the last of the last of a dying breed, and everybody's putting their hopes and dreams on me, and I just want to play Xbox. When you have depression, you don't get all of these things at once. It's not like 100% of the time this is how you feel and you get all of this at once, because if I had all of this at once all the time, I probably would have killed myself a long time ago. But it's a bits and pieces, mixed bag, pick a handful, 3, 4, last a couple days. Sometimes you have a good day, then it goes away, good couple hours, goes away, bad couple hours, just on, off. But it's frequent enough to feel constant, even though it might not be 100% constant. It feels constant, it's brooding, it's ominous, it's always there, and that's what's been screwing me up. That I just never really had the desire to do things. Like, I really like making videos, don't get me wrong. The YouTube, I would call it a quote jobby, hobby, whatever. It's fun, it's enjoyable, I like doing it. The money aspect of YouTube only encourages me to make more videos and gives me more free time to do it. But doing in-depth has been a little bit challenging lately, especially on guns that I don't use. You have to level up a gun from level 0 to at least like 12, 13, 14, 15 in a day. Try to master it, come up with a unique class, do the numbers, and it kind of wore down on me and ate into my sleep schedule, and that wasn't really why I was depressed. Now I have to talk about the causes of my depression, and number one was my wife's depression. When my wife quit her job because she had a nursing job, they were working her about 75 hours a week, and the hospital wasn't hiring new employees, they were just requiring everybody to do overtime and double overtime. I convinced her to quit and take off, and that what would happen is that she would just get a part-time job in the fall, and then we would, move to Texas or move somewhere. We didn't know it was Texas yet, and everything would be fine. What happened was the part-time job fell through. She spent her money relatively quickly, and she fell into a very bad state of depression. She felt very worthless because she would sit at home all day, and I would do class, and then come home and do videos, and then take care of dinner and do all these other things. And it really piled on her, and she felt really, really worthless and down on herself, and she felt bad when she couldn't get jobs or a job fell through. And I took it upon myself at trying to be a good husband to make her feel better. I was always like Mr. Sunshine and Rainbows, Mr. Positive Spin on everything. We can do better. This is okay. I'll take care of it. Blah, blah, blah. And the depression just got worse and worse and worse after the job rejections and the lack of money and the small disasters. And it really continued to snowball. Even when we moved here to Texas, there's a million small disasters that really piled on her, and I just kept eating the brunt of it constantly, and it kind of wears on you. It actually wears on you more than anything when you're really, really sad, but you have to pretend to be happy or optimistic or upbeat for other people's benefit. And after months of doing that, it finally just wore down and kind of broke me. There were other problems going on, not quite as big as that, but that was the big one, is that I could not get a handle on my wife's depression. I cannot. It's something I've always done. I always try to fix people's problems for them. I try to make them feel better or I can't, but I can't. You can't like pop open somebody's mind and flip a few switches and be okay, or kind of like the same thing, like I feel bad. You can't just give me an ice cream cone and everything's better. It's the same way with my wife. She has to work through it on her own. I have to work through it on my own. We're just a very depressed, sad couple. I've had some health and money problems with my father and grandmother. My grandmother is in very poor mental health. She's slipping into, I would say, middle to late stages of dementia, but she's still barely able to take care of herself. She has cancer, and the problem is that she's in denial really, really bad. And because of dementia, she really just doesn't understand that she still has cancer, and that no matter how many times we tried to tell her that the cancer is still there, it was just like talking to a wall. Basically, she got a scan, and the resolution on the scan was such that it was looking for tumors. The doctor said, okay, well, we got the tumors, but we don't know if the little cancer is there. What she heard is, we can't find anything, you're cured, go home. That's somewhat stressful. The situation with my father is bad because he's currently unemployed and he can't get on Social Security because it's a very arduous process in the state of Mississippi. So he's running out of money, and I was sending him money for a while, money that I didn't have, money I was pulling out of thin air and just like making happen with little promo deals on the channel just on a daily basis. And my father and my grandmother don't get along, and I know that you shouldn't like hear or talk about these kind of things when you're an adult, but I was raised by my grandparents for a long time, and then my father, and then my mother, and then my father, and then my grandparents again like that, so I kind of have a lot of different parents to keep up with, and I feel that I do owe them my time and respect and courtesy. But my grandmother is very wealthy, but she will not support my father with anything, even though he was unemployed, can't get Social Security, can't get disability, can't get anything, and just like he had about a week or two of money left, so I had to come and be the arbiter and talk between them and work things out. And that involved, you know, driving from Mississippi to Texas to sort this out because people can't talk to each other. That's how I grew up when I was a kid, always playing password, because no individual member of my family would directly communicate with the other, so I still have to do that. That was stressful. Thankfully, I pulled some magic out. She'd been out there for a couple of days, came off the meds, got probably a heat stroke, burned real bad, and whatever happened to her, she's never been the same. And this sounds really cruel to say, but I consider my mother dead. She is living with her sister in Kentucky on Social Security disability up there, but her mind is gone. She's doing very, very well to speak in full sentences. Typically, she gets out a phrase or about half a thought, typically 4 to 5, 6 words at a time, and then it just kind of dribbles into randomness. And if she gets remotely upset or confused about anything, it's the same thing. Very repetitious, very dementia. And the sad thing is she still feels very strongly. She still loves me, my brother, her children. She wants to come and do, she wants to be kind of like the mom on Everybody Loves Raymond, where they live with the family and she gets to be the grandmother and cook and do things with the grandkids. But I can't let her anywhere near me or my family because she is a magnet for disaster and trouble, violence, police, and things like that. And I just have to keep lying to her and making excuses for why my wife doesn't want to talk to her or be around or things like that. And I consider her dead. I feel like I get phone calls from a ghost all the time, and it's one of the more selfish things I've probably ever said in my life, but it might be better if she had died because I don't know what's left of her. I really don't know what's left in her brain anymore, and it stresses me so much. Moving to Texas was a big cause of stress. My wife went earlier, and she left everything with me, but she also left a lot of expectations with me. That everything needed to be packed perfectly, done her way, it needed to be moved this day, and we're cutting a lot of things really close, like moving out the same day we have to move in, finishing school the day before, and I, through very little sleep and lots of gamma labs, managed to barely get everything over to Texas, which was a trick in and of itself. But the bigger problem was the expectations in the move were completely different. I grew up very mobile, living with my mom. We didn't do a lot of things legally. So I lived in Mississippi, I lived in Texas, I lived in Kentucky, I lived in Arkansas, maybe bits of Tennessee for a little bit. I moved around a lot in a lot of different places in those states. So my wife says, I want to move to Texas. I'm like, sure, Texas is nice, I'll go to Texas. We get here, everything's cool, and about 2 weeks after being here, starts planning school districts and children and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And she says, well, we were Texans now. I'm like, we're not Texans. I'm not a Texan. She says, yeah, we're living here now. I'm like, what do you mean? And her expectation was, because she lived in one town her whole life, that's where she grew up. She did the college thing. She decided ahead of time that she liked Texas, and that's where she was going to live, and that's where she wants to live, and she wants to be in Texas forever. Apparently we discussed this at one point, but the idea never really sank in for me, or I wasn't paying attention or something. So I get here and I'm like, I'm in Texas forever now? How did this happen? And it's not the worst thing. I like Texas, I like the Dallas area, it's a nice place to live, but I've always lived a very highly mobile life, just very, very mobile, moved around all the time. The concept of living one place forever for just stopping is completely alien for me. And when I explained this to my wife, things didn't go over particularly well. She was really upset for about 3 or 4 days because